Hi, I'm Brian Rue, and here we are, another episode of From Garage to Growth. Today, I've got my valued client, Chris Rusch, former owner of Rusch Machine. We're going to hear all about it. And I just checked, but believe it or not, we have a relationship for over 25 years.
Isn't that something?
That dates us.
Yeah, it does.
So Chris, what we're trying to do today, obviously, is just find out your story. And I actually probably will be learning some things too, even though I've known you that long. And hopefully at the end of the day, leave some tidbits to individuals that might be drinking the Kool-Aid to do something that you did.
Okay.
Take us back to the humble beginnings of Chris Rusch and what prompted you to start Rusch Machine.
All right. My career dates back to, this is the early 90s and actually 1989. And I was working for a different company and we made high-speed wrapping equipment, pretty common in the Paper Valley area. And I worked for that company. And that's where I cut my teeth. That's where I learned everything. That was my college. Everybody asked me where I went to college. I didn't go to college, but I worked at this place where we built high-end machinery, and I learned everything there. I learned machining, wiring, hydraulics, pneumatics, all of the above, everything but business ownership. But parallel to that, at the same time, I was a car enthusiast. So I was building a Lamborghini Countach from scratch.
Wow.
In my garage. That was my hobby back then. That was the car everybody had hanging on their wall. I couldn't afford one, so I was going to build one. And so I was building one in my garage, and the car needed to have several tubes bent on it. And I had no way to bend tubing. I didn't know anything about tubing bending. And I decided, seeing I was a machine builder, designer at this previous company, that I would design my own tubing bender to bend the tubes for this car that I was making. So wasn't thinking about leaving or changing careers or anything at the time, but I made this tubing bender in my shop. I had a pretty nice machine shop and car shop in my garage at home. And I built a tubing bender, and it was very crude, but it did the job. It did what it needed to do. It bent the tubes for the car that I was building. And people would come in and say, wow, that thing's really cool, that's neat. Oh, you should try selling that. I'm like, maybe I should. As things progressed a little bit along, I'm like, hey, maybe I can take this somewhere. I redesigned it, made it into a packageable machine, something that was saleable, nice and painted and everything. And decided, okay, we'll see where this goes. I took that machine to a trade show down in North Carolina, a racing expo. I forget the exact name, but we went to that trade show and I had tons of interest in this tubing bender that I had built. I went there because the only other people I could think of that would need this product are race car drivers, NASCAR type things. So I went to the heart of NASCAR, went to Charlotte, North Carolina to a trade show. And from there I had tons of interest in this machine. I was like, holy cow, this is actually something in demand. At the time there was no internet, no anything, you just had magazines. I didn't know about competition, I didn't know about anything. I took the leap of faith, quit my job, and said, I'm going to make tubing benders.
Unbelievable. So what year was this then when you did that?
That was 1989.
Holy man. So is that the infancy of when Rusch Machine was formed?
That was.
Wow.
That was it, yep.
So tell me the humble beginnings as far as the actual moment or circumstance that led you to the birth of your business. Was that trade show and the results?
Yeah, it was the trade show and the realization that somebody wanted what I was offering. I hadn't quit my job yet before I did the trade show. I quit after I realized that there was demand for this product.
Were you married already?
We were.
How'd you buy groceries?
It was tough. I had a little bit of a savings, and we used that. So I had some toys, so I sold all my toys. I kept one. I kept my Nova, but I had motorcycles, this, that, and the other thing. I sold everything to start the business. So we went from, we're living a good life, making a decent wage. And it was just stale. At the time, it was a little stale, so I wanted to spice things up, and boy, did I spice things up.
And of course, being married, I mean, you had to get the buy-in from your wife. Tell me a little bit about how she felt about it.
She was for it. She saw the vision. She was for it. We would talk about it often, obviously, back then. We're like, if it doesn't work out, I'm talented in the job that I currently do, and I can go to any paper mill in the Fox Valley, and I'll get a job.
So you had a fallback.
I had a fall. That was my fallback. I never had to use it, which is good. But
I was going to say, you never had to look back.
But I always had I knew that industry pretty good, the paper industry, and I could have got a job doing that again.
So when I met you, you were operating out of a facility in Two Rivers, Wisconsin.
Yep, that's correct.
Is that where you guys lived and worked?
We did. It's funny because all of my locations are within a mile of my house. I started in my garage. I went literally around the corner to an old construction building, a little 5,000 square foot building. Actually, it was less than that. 3,000 square foot construction building, really old and decrepit building. That was the first move. And then the next move was literally a block and a half away to another building, which was a more modern building owned by the city. It was the Innovator building. I had a real good rate. And I would have stayed there forever if it would have been bigger. So it was all good. But that was only 5,000 square feet. And we grew out of that real quick. And then we went another, this was maybe a half a mile away, to a large industrial building, which was 80,000 square feet. And we leased half of it at that time.
Gotcha. Tell me a little bit about the progression of employees and when you took the risk of adding people to help you do what you're doing.
Yep. In the beginning, I worked out of my garage by myself, made the first handful of machines all by myself, moved to the next building, quickly realized that I can't do all this by myself, and I started looking for somebody. So it was a word of mouth hire. Somebody wanted to get out of a big company by us was Miro at the time, and so I got a guy from there, and he was my first employee, and it helped out a ton. So from there, I added another, and then another, and it progressed all the way to, I think my highest employment level was 26 or 27 with some part-time help. So.
Gotcha. Crazy. So was there ever a point in the early years where you just felt like giving up and going back to the fallback?
Not really, no. The first couple of years were a struggle, but I didn't consider throwing in the towel.
Really?
Yeah. Getting orders, and then, like I had told you earlier, running a business, I had no idea how to run a business, so I was green. And that's probably where the biggest struggle came in, is not knowing what the hell I'm doing on the business side. So I could machine and fabricate and do all that, but learning how to sell, that's where I really struggled. And so in the interim, I did fill-in work, I did job shop work, just to pay the bills.
Sure.
So there were several companies that I was in with or whatever, and they would throw me a bone and have me do jobs for them. So that paid the bills. The tubing bender thing slowly launched, and it wasn't a rocket ship by any means, the launch of the company. It was baby steps. Sell a couple here, sell a couple there, design new machinery to fill. Once you started to learn the industry, learn the tubing bending market, there were other needs that other companies weren't filling. And then that's where I took a hold, and I would design new equipment, not just tubing benders, other equipment for that industry to plug these holes.
So let me say this back to you. So what you're telling me is, over time, Chris just didn't have a one-dimensional machine he sold. You sold several models, different types of stuff.
We did, yeah.
Nice.
So we started out in the tube bending area, and then we went to tube notching. And then there were other passions of mine, because earlier I had mentioned that I was doing a car build. So I also had interest in metal fabricating, metal shaping. So that's a whole market that really didn't exist. It was a market that was around during the war years, World War II and stuff, and there was a lot of metal shaping when they were building airplanes and things like that. And then some high-end shops around the country would be fabricating stuff for cars, but the industry was very unknown. It's like black magic type stuff. But I was intrigued with it, and I had friends that had this type of equipment, the old World War II stuff, but there was no modern equipment that could be used to bring this back to life.
Interesting.
So I designed metal fabricating equipment, power hammers, bead rollers, air hammers, shrinkers and stretchers, all that stuff that was used during World War II. I designed all brand new equipment for this era for people to do it. And now my stuff is all over the world. Australia has a lot of stuff, England has a lot of stuff, the USA of course, but these new metal shaping, and that was more of a passion of mine. I didn't do that. Obviously money was great and it helped build the business, but I didn't do it for that. I did it because I really enjoyed that type of stuff, and machine building was my passion. So and it still is. I still love building machinery.
See, and that's why you're so successful, because you tie passion with the skill sets in, and there was a need for it. What a wonderful combination of success.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Awesome.
It worked out really good. So.
Amazed. I didn't know any of this. Tell me some of the major obstacles you faced while you were walking through business. What parts of the business, obviously I hear what parts you really loved, and that's the metal bending, machining, and the passion, but tell me some of the stuff that you didn't like about
Well,
the
for me it
business.
was sales. Not that I didn't like dealing with customers, it's just that I'm not a salesman. I don't have that connection with with a person to be able to sell them something. I can tell you all about the equipment, but I couldn't close a deal for the life of it. So I partnered with Vyper Industrial early on. We started our companies in conjunction.
Interesting.
And they were my marketing arm. They were my sales arm for me.
So they would get a slice of what they sold for you?
So it was an agreement that we had on how this would work. And that's what we followed for 20 years.
So instead of you trying to force yourself into something that you really didn't like doing, you found some partner, so to speak, that was really good at it and was able to take that off your plate.
That's exactly it in a nutshell. So we both did what we were really good at. The owner of Bailey was excellent at marketing and sales, and I felt I was pretty good at building and designing machinery. So I could focus my whole day on, there was no sales. I did deal with customers, but no sales, none of that, no marketing, no anything. I could just focus on building the best machines I could and getting them done in a...
You know what was amazing? I can remember I don't know when this was, maybe it was not too long before you sold the business, you were working on another machine, an efficient machine just to keep things going because stuff was tough.
That's true.
And I saw you on your computer. I would think it's a CAD.
It is, yeah.
And it was amazing to me to watch you work and how you were designing things. How did you learn that? What kind of education? Our marketing director's son is loving this kind of stuff. What would you tell a young person who has a passion for that, but yet what are the tools and techniques they need?
I mean, it's like you said earlier, you have to love it. Okay, so back in high school, so I come from the school of drawing on a board, pencil and a board.
Yeah.
That's where I started. So I loved drafting class in school. I loved drafting, machining. That was just what people love, sports and all this other stuff. That's what I loved. That was my passion. So by designing on a board, it brings you back to, holy crap, this is really not hard, but compared to what we have now, it's really hard. And not hard, there's a lot of labor.
Yeah.
It's a lot of labor to do something very simple. So at my previous company, we started on a board there, and I designed stuff, pencil, paper, and vellum, and then we got AutoCAD. So AutoCAD is a 2D designing program where you just draw in two-dimensional.
Sure.
But it's almost the same as drawing on a board, except you're using a mouse. So I transitioned to AutoCAD like butter. It was really nice. And you could do stuff so much faster. If you wanted to erase a line, you just delete it. You didn't have to erase the line.
So to this day, is that your tool of choice?
No, I use AutoCAD, but then as things developed, so that company never got into 3D.
Okay.
When I started my company, I used AutoCAD in the beginning. And then there were some 3D, this is early in 3D world. It didn't exist yet. So then there were a couple 3D packages that started to come out, but they were ridiculously expensive. And then SolidWorks is my tool of choice now. And I didn't get on SolidWorks, I don't believe, until 2005, 6 maybe, somewhere in that range.
Okay.
And that was new. Maybe it wasn't new in the world, but it was new to me. And I bit the bullet at the time. It was fairly expensive, but it wasn't the most expensive one out there at the time. But it turned out I chose the right one because the SolidWorks, in my opinion, is the king right now in design software. And I stayed with them forever. And then it was a transition as once you know how it works and know how to look at something and feel something, you take to it and you can flow with it. So now I dream in SolidWorks. It might be weird, but I think of what I want, and I already have it in my head on how I'm going to draw it before I even get to the computer.
Amazing.
So then I get to the computer and I already have it clocked in my head on how I'm going to draw it. So I just fly through it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So I assume that you're not the type of guy that would ever desire to want to teach this to the youth of the world as opposed to just doing your own thing and enjoying it?
No, I do teach, and I think I do pretty good at teaching people how to do stuff. Throughout the years, I've had people that work for me, and I try to teach them the trade as best that I know.
Nice.
And I think I guess I can relate that to my employees. Most of my employees I trained, not all, but most. And I trained through and made them efficient in the job that I wanted them to do for me.
Yeah, because it's such a unique deal. They don't probably come with that skill set to your business.
But then I helped train my sons and a lot of stuff.
Yeah, so let's back up the truck a little bit before we do go to the sons, because they're next. Is there just one major significant victory? I think the answer is no, because it seems like you just graduated. But at what point did Chris feel like he made it?
I guess when I sold.
I was fortunately able to be part of that and doing some projection work for you, the what ifs, all that was, and that's what gets me out of bed in the morning, to turn a guy's life's work into a financial secure package for him. But that's when you really realized it, huh?
I think when you're in it daily, you don't ever think that you're winning. It doesn't ever feel like you're winning. I don't know. Even though you're progressing and milestones it just doesn't feel that way. And maybe on paper it may look like, holy cow, everything's going great. But when you're in it, you always feel like the economy could crash tomorrow and you have nothing.
That's why it's good to yank a guy like you who's off the treadmill and so driven and focused in your area to take a step back and take a good look.
Yeah.
So you sold your business to a third party, and very successfully. And again, I remember that whole episode.
So I sold my business to Bailey, the company that we marketed with. So that was a nice transition. Bailey wanted to brand everything in their name, and we worked together for so long that it was a natural transition.
Which helped.
It did. So there was an offer made, and with lots of discussion, we decided that it was the right move for us as a family.
So at the time, I remember you had one of the two of your sons in the business.
Yep.
How did you feel a little bit about that, selling the business with him in it?
That was probably the hardest part about selling, is I did feel like that I pulled the rug out from both my sons, that I wouldn't have a business to pass on to them. But there was a lot of discussion, and there was some other stuff involved that made the decision the right one.
I know it's a really sad situation, but tell us a little bit about what's going on with your boys now.
Yeah. So seeing that the boys wouldn't have a fallback on the business, on Rusch Machine, I helped them in their new venture, and that's Vyper Industrial.
So you're being modest, and I want to tell the audience basically that Chris came up with a chair, simple chair, because he wanted something for himself, right?
Yeah.
So tell the story.
So it can be claused in the accident realm. After I sold my company, I have this fantastic shop up here that I set up very well for myself. And one thing lacking was a decent shop chair. And if you go out and you do the Harbor Freight ones or whatever, they're all junk and they don't last. And I had it happen to me. I'm wheeling around on a chair and a wheel broke off or whatever. I went on my ass and I was pissed. So I had some time on my hands. I wasn't having to go to work every day. So I'm like, I'm going to make a good shop chair. Again, I wasn't making to sell it, but I was making a good shop chair. So Dane, my youngest son, was in college at the time. And we were going through thrift stores, getting him a bed or something for his college dorm. And I saw these big casters that were at this thrift store. And I'm like, ooh, I'm going to use those to make that shop chair. So I bought these casters, $1 a piece or whatever it was, and I came back to the shop and I whipped up a wide base, large wheel shop chair with a leather seat that would go over damn near anything and roll like the breeze with adjustable height. And it turned out great. It was my shop chair. Dane was soon to graduate from college, and he was looking for something to do in the future, and he's not the type that wanted to go work for anybody. He saw what owning your own business has its benefits, and he saw that, and he really wanted to do something on his own first before he would go job searching. So he was looking at that shop chair, and he thought, Dad, I can sell those. Dane's a seller, he can sell. I'm like, really? Oh, okay. So I did the same thing that we did with the tubing bender back in the 20 years ago, is I took that shop chair, the one I made in the shop, I just whipped together. So I took it and I went to my handy dandy SolidWorks and I designed up a saleable shop chair, something that looked really good, was easy to build, and that we could build for a fair price. And that's what you're sitting on right there, is almost identical to the one that I drew up.
Awesome.
And that one he took and ran with it like you can't believe. So Dylan, my oldest son, was still working at the company that I had just sold. And Dane was like, Dylan, I need help. And do we want to keep this thing going? It started off way more gangbusters than Rusch Machine and Design. There was a high demand for high-end shop stool, and it started off really well. And Dana was soon enveloped with so much work for one guy
Sure.
to do. And I'm helping now, so I'm back, I'm working and trying to keep orders going out. And Dylan saw that, holy cow, this can be a really good deal. And he quit the job and came to be Dane's partner.
Awesome.
And I couldn't be happier. So now they're not living off of Dad's coattails and Rusch Machine and Design and taking that to the next level. They started their own thing. They're taking it to the level that they want to take it to, and I couldn't be happier.
Nice. What a story. I think that currently Vyper is the name of the company.
Vyper, spelled with a Y, V-Y-P-E-R.
Yeah. And so Vyper, making these cool chairs, went from a couple people just like you did in the beginning. How many employees?
Yeah, I think they're at 35 right now.
It's amazing. What a story. Like father, like sons.
Yeah, they're going heads and tails further than I went, which is great.
So tell me a little bit about the impact of this business on your personal life now today. You know, way back when you were working for that other company and stuff, did you ever envision how
No.
the end of the rainbow?
Nope, not at all. When I quit, I tell everybody I didn't do it for money and to be. So I did it because I wanted to go to nice places to eat and have a nice house, and that was it. It really wasn't any more than that, and live comfortably.
Live the American dream.
Yeah, live comfortably.
Work ethic, passion. Give the advice to all those newbies out there that maybe would jump off the cliff like you did to try to succeed in business today on their own.
So I do a lot of these type of interviews, and it comes back to the same thing, and it's do what you love and the money will come. Do what you love and do it to the best of your ability and the money will come.
Not only that, but you got a legacy now that's amazing and a life that many people envy. Now they know the rest of the story.
No, thanks,
Thanks, buddy.
Brian. It's great.
Great.